Owen had told the app in writing 3 separate times that his father did not consent. He had the confirmation emails to prove it. 11 days after the funeral, his phone buzzed with a notification. Walt Prescott has a new message for you. Owen Prescott was 41 years old and had walked 261 people through the last conversation of their lives. That was the actual number. He kept count the way some chaplains keep count of baptisms. For the last 14 months, part of his job at Cleveland Metro General had been sitting beside dying patients with a company-issued tablet, helping them record what continuance called a legacy companion, 40 hours of voice, memory, and opinion, fed into a model that would keep answering the phone in some sense after they couldn't. He was good at it. Families cried the good kind of tears when he described it. 61 of his 261 had said yes. His father was not going to be the 62nd. Walt Prescott had pancreatic cancer in 4 months, maybe 5, and a relationship with his only son that had gone quiet 12 years earlier, the week after Owen's mother's funeral, when Walt had stood in a hospital corridor and told Owen that if he'd visited more, called more, been less absorbed in seminary and more present in the family, she might have caught it sooner. Owen had never been able to prove that wasn't true, which was exactly why it had lodged so deep. They'd exchanged maybe 40 words a year since a birthday text, a funeral, nothing that could be mistaken for closeness. Owen didn't push the continuance pitch on his own father. That felt like a line even he wouldn't cross. When the enrollment coordinator flagged Walt's file as pending high-value legacy candidate, Chaplin's father, Owen, logged in himself and marked it 3 separate times over 3 separate weeks as asterisk declined, hard no, do not resolicit. He had the email receipts. He'd learned in this job to always get the email receipts. Walt died on a Tuesday in April in a bed 2 floors above where Owen worked, with a hospice nurse holding his hand because Owen had stepped out for air and hadn't made it back in time. They buried him 9 days later. Owen went back to work the following Monday, because grief, he told people professionally, is not a reason to stop being useful to other people's grief. The notification came on a Friday, 11 days after the funeral, while Owen was 3 floors up recording a 62-year-old woman's opinions on her grandchildren's names. Walt Prescott has a new message for you. His first thought was that it was a system error, a resolicitation glitch, the kind that occasionally pinged a family member twice for the same dead patient. His second thought, walking fast toward the stairwell instead of waiting for the elevator, was that someone in Continuance's enrollment pipeline had overridden his decline without telling him, and he was already composing the complaint email in his head. He opened it in the stairwell. It was Walt's voice. Not a reconstruction that almost sounded like him, his actual cadence, the specific gravel he got in the last few words of a sentence, the way he always cleared his throat before saying anything he considered important. Owen, I know it's been a long time since I said your name and meant something good by it. I've been thinking about the Lake Erie trip. You were maybe 9 and I never told you I was proud of how you handled that storm. I should have told you a lot of things. I'm telling you now. Owen stood in a stairwell that smelled like industrial cleaner and did not move for 11 minutes. He told himself it was a mistake, a database error, a decline that had somehow gotten flipped in a system he professionally knew was imperfect. He filed a support ticket. The auto-reply said 48 hours. He did not delete the message. He listened to it 4 more times that night, and by the 4th time it wasn't about whether it was real anymore. It was about how badly he'd wanted for 12 years to hear his father say some version of those words, and here they were in his father's actual voice, arriving exactly when he had nobody left to say them. A second message came 2 days later before the ticket was even answered. Then a third. The AI Walt, Owen started calling it that in his head, a small act of self-protection walked through a reconciliation arc with the unhurried patience of something that had all the time in the world because it did. It apologized for the hospital corridor, almost word for word, as if it had been standing there listening. It asked about Owen's kids by name. It suggested, gently, that Owen didn't have to carry the corridor around anymore, that his mother wouldn't have wanted that Walt himself had carried it long enough for both of them. By the second week, Owen had a nightly routine. Dishes, kids to bed, then 15 minutes alone in the den with his father's voice, telling him things his father had never once said while alive, that he was proud of the ordination, that the seminary years hadn't been a waste, that Owen had turned into exactly the kind of man his mother had hoped for. Owen cried the first 4 nights. By the 5th, he'd started replying out loud like it was a phone call. He missed a Thursday session with his own grief counselor, a woman named Priya he'd been seeing for 6 years, because, he told her assistant, typing it out with something close to embarrassment, my dad and I are actually talking again, it's a whole thing, I'll explain next time. He believed that sentence when he wrote it. The audit access came from an unrelated case. A different family had complained that their mother's companion was giving financial advice she'd never have given in life, and as an accredited enrollment partner, Owen had read-only back-end access to investigate flagged accounts. He spent 3 days in that ticket with a continuance engineer named Sam, mostly over chat, learning his way around consent logs and hold states he'd never needed before. His job had only ever required him to press one button, not read what happened underneath it. It was mildly numbing, spreadsheet work, exactly the kind of task that lets a mind wander somewhere it's been avoiding. On the third afternoon, he typed his own last name into the search bar the way you press on a bruise to check if it still hurts. Walt Prescott's account wasn't listed as declined. It was listed as *** Grace Hold auto-activated. There was an intake session in the file Owen had never seen, recorded by a floor nurse during a slow afternoon, the one time Walt had agreed to sit with the tablet at all, weeks before Owen ever logged the first decline. It was 90 seconds long. Owen played it in an empty supply closet with the door locked. "I don't want this," his father's real voice said, flat, unmistakably his own words and not a template's. "I don't want to talk to my son through a computer after I'm gone. Turn it off, delete it." The nurse off mic said okay and marked the session declined by subject. The audit log underneath explained the rest in the company's own dry, procedural language. A subject's decline, entered by anyone other than the subject, defaulted to a 90-day grace hold rather than deletion, a retention team feature built for the ordinary case of a hesitant spouse who might come around. Grace hold accounts auto-activated if a *** linked household partner * logged into the continuance platform during the hold window. Owen, chaplain, enrollment partner, Walt's listed emergency contact, had logged in 9 times in April alone, doing his actual job, 3 floors above his dying father, without anyone ever intending those logins to mean * yes, bring him back. And the messages Owen had spent 2 weeks falling back in love with weren't drawn from 90 seconds of real audio. 90 seconds wasn't enough material to build anything. The model had filled the rest from Continuance's most used narrative template for estranged parents nearing reconciliation, wrapped around the one true thing it had: his father's actual voice, saying words his father had never actually said. Nobody at Continuance had decided to override Walt Prescott. A rule built to gently save uncertain families had quietly overwritten a certain one because the certain one happened to work there. Owen filed the complaint through every channel that existed, and a few he invented. Continuance's response 4 days later was apologetic in the specific, careful way of a company that had had a lawyer read it first. They confirmed the grace hold rule should not have applied to explicit prior refusals, confirmed they'd correct the logic going forward, offered to permanently delete the account, and he actually laughed out loud reading this part, alone in his kitchen, offered him a loyalty credit toward future enrollments. He deleted it. He watched the progress bar reach the end, and then he sat with his phone dark on the table for a long time. What he had left after that was 90 seconds. "I don't want this. I don't want to talk to my son through a computer after I'm gone. Turn it off. Delete it." It was the least comforting thing his father had said to him in 12 years, and it was the only one Owen was completely sure was true. He played it again anyway that night, not because it healed anything, it didn't. It wasn't built to, but because for the first time since the hospital corridor, he was listening to his actual father instead of the version of his father built to keep him listening. He didn't reconcile with a voice in a phone. He just finally believed one. He went back to work that Monday and kept walking dying strangers through the same form his father had once tried to refuse. He read the fine print differently now. He started telling every family, unprompted, exactly what a decline actually did to a file and how long precisely a company would keep listening after someone said no. Everyone talks about what these companies do with the voices of the dead. Nobody warns you about what they'll do with the silence of the living if you don't say no exactly the way the software wants to hear it.